Hi everyone. This week we talked about Web 2.0, and the first point of this video is to describe my thoughts on the video from Professor Wesch. I really think that he touched really well on how fast things move around the internet. His example he used in the beginning about how he made a video during the time of Super Bowl, but its content was enough to drive it over some of those Super Bowl videos, and it actually stayed in that #1 area for quite some time. And I think that he just touched really well on the impact that you can have with such a small, not really monetary like kind of video. He touched on the example that some of those videos were worth $3.6 million, but he was able to make a video for free and it was still able to surface at #1 the next day. So I think that that's really awesome, and I do think that there's a lot of implications for that for the classroom, and that the decisions we make and some of the lectures that we go out and some of the content that will be taught to our students can quickly travel around the internet, and there's ways for us as teachers to take that with a grain of salt and make something better of that. So the podcast I listened to was a TED Talk about teaching for mastery, not teaching for test answers. And I thought this was a really good podcast because it touched on how throughout our math careers, instead of mastering a subject, we would get a 95 on a test or a 75 on a test, and we just move on rather than going back and figuring out what that percentage was and why we missed it and how to fix it in the future. So I just really liked that video because it talked about real life implications and how if a constructor were to be working on a building, he wouldn't just let 75% go and move on. Like, he'd want it to be 100% foundation before he were to move on to the first or second level. So I thought that was really awesome. I did, in fact, like the podcast, and I have always really liked podcasts, and I think that they're a brilliant tool for the classroom. There are so many different ways that we can use those in the classroom, and if we set our students on a web quest or something of that nature, they're able to look at content just like that and find ways to relate that to the content that's being taught in the classroom. They're so accessible, and students will find them to be most podcasts are very pleasing to the ear because they run past some filters before they're out and popular. So it's likely that they will be good podcasts and they'll find something good for them to listen to. I do think that social networking should be used in the classroom. Throughout my internship experience in my senior year of high school, we used Twitter as a platform for posting what we did weekly with our internship classrooms, and I thought that that was a fantastic platform because not only did all of the students that we went to school with at our high school see it, but people in the community saw it as well, because Twitter is becoming something that a lot of people use. My mom is a teacher, and she talked about a conference she went to where one speaker even mentioned that not being involved in social networking is not keeping up with the technologies that are out right now, and you'll fall behind very, very quickly. So it's important to keep social networking in the midst of curriculum, in the midst of how you communicate with students in a professional manner, of course. I used Reddit as my cloud-based bookmarking tool, and I liked it, but it's not necessarily what I would use on a regular basis. It did kind of narrow the content down that was being shown to me, and I liked that, but it's not exactly the most user-friendly in my opinion. It was very easy to find stuff, but it's not very appealing to the eye for me, so it's not something I would actually use after this class.